My mother had a strange habit. Whenever relatives visited, she would tell the same story. "Oh, she's adopted." And then she would laugh. At first, people thought it was a joke. So did I. I was about 10 years old. The first time I heard it. Everyone at the dinner table laughed. But I didn't. Because something in the way she said it didn't feel like a joke. It felt intentional. Over the years, the story never stopped. Family gatherings, neighbors, even strangers. "She's adopted," my mother would say. Like it was a fact. Like it was something she wanted everyone to believe. The strange part, no one in my family ever corrected her. And the older I got, the more that silence started to feel like a secret. As I got older, the joke never stopped. At birthdays, my mother would say it again. "Oh, you know she's adopted." People would laugh awkwardly. Some thought it was humor. Others looked confused. But no one ever asked me how it felt. At school, things got worse. One of my cousins repeated the story. Soon classmates were asking questions. "Where are your real parents? Do you know your real family?" I didn't know what to say. Because every time I asked my mother about it, she would smile and say, "Why does it bother you so much?" Like the problem wasn't the story. Like the problem was me. But the more she repeated it, the more I started wondering something terrifying. What if it wasn't a joke? What if it was true? By the time I turned 16, the story had spread everywhere. Relatives believed it. Neighbors believed it. Even some teachers had heard it. But something didn't add up. Every time someone asked my mother details, she changed the story. Sometimes she said I was adopted as a baby. Sometimes she said I came from another city. Once she even said she rescued me. The stories were different. But the message was always the same. I wasn't really hers. One evening I finally asked my father. Not in front of everyone. Just the two of us in the kitchen. "Am I adopted?" He froze. For a moment he didn't speak. Then he said something strange. "You know how your mother is." That wasn't an answer. That was avoidance. And in that moment, I realized something was very wrong. The more I thought about it, the less it felt like a joke. It felt like a label. A way to make sure I never fully belonged. At family gatherings, my cousins would say things like, "Well, you're not really one of us." And my mother would just smile. Never correcting them. Never defending me. One night I asked her directly, "Why do you keep telling people I'm adopted?" She shrugged. "It's funny." Funny. That word hit harder than anything else. Because nothing about it felt funny to me. It felt humiliating. It felt intentional. And the worst part, the rest of my family stayed silent. Like they had agreed not to question it. But deep down, I started forming a plan. If she wanted everyone to believe a story, then one day, I would prove the truth. The idea of a DNA test didn't come immediately. At first, I tried something simpler. I asked for old photos, baby pictures, hospital records, anything. But every time I asked, my mother brushed it off. "Why are you obsessed with this?" she said. Obsessed? I just wanted answers. Then one day, I noticed something strange. There were baby photos of my older brother and my younger sister. Albums full of them. But when it came to me, almost nothing. Just a few pictures from when I was already a toddler. No hospital bracelet. No newborn pictures. No birth story. That gap started to feel bigger every day. And that's when the thought finally became clear. If no one would tell me the truth, science would. When I turned 18, I ordered a DNA test online. I didn't tell anyone. Not my father. Not my siblings. And definitely not my mother. Part of me was scared. What if she was telling the truth? What if I really didn't belong in that family? The test arrived in a small white box. Simple. Quiet. Almost ordinary. But holding it felt like holding an answer. That could change my entire life. I followed the instructions carefully. Swab. Seal. Mail. And then came the hardest part. Waiting. Every day felt longer than the last. Because after years of jokes and whispers, I was finally about to learn whether my mother had been lying or telling the truth. The results took 3 weeks. 21 days of questions. 21 days of imagining every possible answer. During that time, my mother kept telling the same joke. She's adopted. At dinners. On phone calls. Even in front of new neighbors. By then, I didn't react anymore. I just listened. Because this time, something was different. I knew the truth was coming. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed. The email had arrived. DNA results ready. My hands were shaking as I opened it. There were charts. Percentages. Family matches. But one line stood out immediately. Parent match, 99.9%. And the name next to it was my father. Which meant one thing. If my father was my biological parent, then my mother's story couldn't possibly be true. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not without proof. The DNA results didn't just match my father. They matched my entire family line. Cousins. Aunts. Grandparents. Every branch of the same tree. The science was clear. I wasn't adopted. Not even close. I was biologically connected. To the same family my mother kept claiming I didn't belong to. But instead of feeling relieved, I felt something else. Anger. Because if the truth was so obvious, then why had she spent years telling everyone the opposite? Why make your own child feel like an outsider? Why repeat a lie so many times that people started believing it? I printed the results. Every page. Every detail. And then I waited. Because I knew exactly when the truth needed to be revealed. At the next family gathering. In front of everyone. The next family gathering happened 2 weeks later. A birthday dinner. A big table. Relatives everywhere. Exactly the kind of place where my mother loved to tell her story. And right on schedule, she did. Someone asked how I was doing. She laughed and said it again. You know she's adopted. The table chuckled politely. Some people looked at me, waiting for my reaction. But this time, I didn't stay quiet. I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table. My mother frowned. What's that? She asked. I slid the papers toward the center. DNA results, I said calmly. The laughter stopped. Completely. And for the first time in years, my mother didn't have a joke ready. My mother stared at the papers. At first, she didn't pick them up. Like ignoring them would make them disappear. My aunt leaned forward first. She read the top line out loud. Parent match. 99.9%. Then she looked at my father. The room went quiet. My cousin took another page. This shows the whole family tree. Another relative whispered. So she's not adopted. No one was laughing anymore. My mother finally grabbed the papers. Her smile was gone. For years she controlled the story. But this time, the story was written in numbers. In science. In proof. And proof is very hard to argue with. For a moment, no one spoke. My mother kept staring at the papers. Like she was searching for a mistake. There must be an error, she said quietly. But no one agreed. Because the results were clear. My father finally looked up. She's my daughter, he said. Simple. Direct. But the room didn't react with shock. Instead, people looked confused. Because the real question wasn't the DNA anymore. The real question was my mother. Why had she said those things for so many years? Why make her own child feel like an outsider? For the first time in my life, all the attention wasn't on me. It was on her. And she had no story left to tell. The dinner ended early that night. People left quietly. No jokes. No whispers. Just uncomfortable silence. My mother never apologized. Not that night. Not later. But something had changed. The story she told for years was gone. Because once people saw the truth, they couldn't pretend anymore. I didn't do the DNA test for revenge. I did it for clarity. For years I wondered if I belonged. But the truth wasn't just in the DNA. It was in the silence that filled that room. Because when the results were read out loud, the laughter disappeared. And the lie finally ended. Silence.